Tonight we are breaking down one of the most shocking NFL wildcard playoff games in recent memory, where the Houston Texans walked into Pittsburgh and completely dismantled the Steelers with a brutal 30-6 victory in a game that felt far more lopsided than the score suggests. This was not just a playoff loss, this was a statement loss, one that raises serious questions about the future of the Steelers franchise, the legacy of Mike Tomlin, and most importantly, the fate of Aaron Rodgers, because for many fans watching this game, it felt like the end of an era from the very first snap. There was a strange tension inside the stadium. Pittsburgh fans came in hopeful but cautious, knowing their team had not won a playoff game in years, while Houston arrived calm, confident, and dangerous. The first quarter was slow, physical, and defensive, as expected in a playoff environment. The Steelers managed to put the first points on the board with a field goal, but even then something felt off. The offense lacked urgency, rhythm, and creativity, while Houston, despite early mistakes, looked faster, sharper, and more prepared. C.J. Stroud did not need to play hero football because the Texans came in with a clear plan: control the pace, trust the defense, and wait for Pittsburgh to crack. And that crack came slowly but inevitably. By halftime, the score was close at 7-6, but the game itself was not. Houston was winning the battle in the trenches, pressuring Rodgers, consistently collapsing the pocket, and forcing rush throws. The Steelers' offense looked old, predictable, and outmatched. And then came the moment that changed everything. Early in the second half, with Pittsburgh trying to regain momentum, Aaron Rodgers dropped back on a critical third down when Will Anderson Jr. exploded through the line, stripped the ball clean, and Sheldon Rankins scooped it up and ran it into the end zone. In one violent instant, the stadium went silent, and the game was effectively over, because that play did more than add points. It broke the Steelers mentally. From that moment on, Houston smelled blood and never let up. The Texans' defense transformed into something historic, suffocating Rodgers on nearly every snap, forcing him into mistakes that looked unfamiliar for a quarterback of his stature. And then came the play that will be replayed for years. Kalen Bullock stepped in front of a Rodgers pass, intercepted it cleanly, and returned it for a touchdown, a defensive score that felt symbolic, because it may very well be the final playoff pass of Aaron Rodgers' career. The man who once dominated January football was now overwhelmed, confused, and physically worn down by a younger, faster, more aggressive defense. Houston finished the night with 2 defensive touchdowns, holding the Steelers to just 175 total yards and never allowing them to find any offensive rhythm at all. And while the defense stole the headlines, the Texans' offense quietly did its job. Christian Kirk delivered a massive performance with over 140 receiving yards, repeatedly exposing coverage gaps, and rookie running back Woody Marks punished the Steelers' defense with tough physical runs, crossing the 100-yard mark and scoring a key touchdown to put the game completely out of reach. This was not flashy football, this was disciplined playoff football, something the Steelers simply could not match. And as the seconds ticked away, the camera kept cutting back to Aaron Rodgers sitting alone on the bench, helmet off, staring into nothingness. And in that moment, the question everyone was thinking became unavoidable: is this the end? Rodgers did not give clear answers after the game, saying only that he would take time to reflect, but the body language told a deeper story. This was a quarterback who looked like he knew the journey might be over, and if that was his final playoff appearance, it ended not with fireworks, but with a harsh reminder that time eventually catches everyone, even legends. Meanwhile, the pressure on Mike Tomlin has now reached a boiling point. 7 straight playoff losses for a franchise built on postseason success is no longer a coincidence, it is a crisis, and the chants from the crowd made it clear patience is running out. This loss was not about effort, it was about preparation, adaptability, and evolution. And right now, Pittsburgh looks stuck in the past, while the rest of the league speeds forward. And on the opposite sideline, the Houston Texans are suddenly one of the most dangerous teams in the postseason. Their defense is elite, opportunistic, and fearless. Their offense does not need to dominate to win, and most importantly, they believe this victory marked the franchise's first ever road playoff win, and they earned it by humiliating one of the NFL's most respected organizations. Now Houston moves on with momentum, confidence, and a growing reputation as a team nobody wants to face, while Pittsburgh is left to pick up the pieces, wondering what comes next: a new quarterback, a new philosophy, or perhaps the end of an era altogether. This was not just a wild card game, it was a turning point, a reminder that legacies are fragile, windows close quickly, and in the NFL nothing is guaranteed except change. And on this night, the Texans didn't just win, they announced their arrival, while the Steelers were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth: the future has arrived and it is moving on without them.